Someone is going to be uncomfortable after this episode, and I am okay with that because today we're talking about why timeless design might actually be one of the most unexamined colonial concepts in interior design. The classic luxury staples, what they are, these elements are often treated as timeless markers of wealth and refinement, especially in Western interior design. White marble seen in floors, countertops, columns, fireplaces, associated with purity, permanence, and expense, difficult to quarry, transport, and install historically, are all wealth signals. Crown molding is decorative trim where walls meet ceilings, adds height, detail, visual finish, and implies craftsmanship, time, and labor. Wainscoting is wood paneling on the lower half of walls. It was originally practical for insulation and protection, but became decorative and status-driven. Brass and gilded metals used in hardware like lighting, railings, and ornamentation have a warm metal sheen associated with gold and often signals opulence, durability, and luxury. These staples show up repeatedly in what we now call classic, elegant, or high-end interiors. Their historical context, where these aesthetics come from, European aristocracy. I keep saying aristocracy, but that's because I'm Jamaican. Marble moldings and gilding were central to palaces, manor houses, and estates. Think Versailles, Buckingham Palace, Italian villas. These materials required skilled artisans, long build times, vast resources, and luxury equals what only the elite could afford. Colonial wealth, European powers extracted wealth, labor, and materials from colonized lands. Marble, hardwoods, metals, and craftsmanship were often funded by enslaved labor, resource exploitation, colonial trade systems, and interiors became physical proof of dominance and economic power. Palaces were used as propaganda. Grand interiors weren't just for comfort, they were designed to intimidate, reinforce hierarchy, and communicate divine or inherited authority. And design equals visual storytelling of power. Now, why these became default symbols of luxury? They were codified by the elite. Aristocrats set the standard, and what they lived with became the benchmark of good design. They were reproduced by institutions, art history and architecture schools, design magazines, museums, Hollywood period films. These spaces were endlessly photographed, studied, and romanticized. They were marketed as timeless. Timelessness equals legitimacy. If something is framed as eternal, it avoids critique. The aesthetic then becomes neutral, not cultural. They signal scarcity. Luxury, historically, is about rarity and labor, difficulty, control of resources. White marble and ornate detailing signaled these spaces cost more than you can imagine. Now here's the unspoken truth. These elements are not inherently luxurious. They are luxurious because we were taught they are. They represent European taste as the global standard, wealth rooted in historical inequality, a narrow definition of beauty and prestige, yet today they are treated as the default aspiration, like even in cultures where they have no ancestral relevance. The bigger question designers should be asking is, if luxury is craftsmanship, intention, cultural depth, story, and sensory richness, then why is carved wood from the Caribbean, indigo dyed textile, hand-woven grass cloth, clay, terrazzo, bronze patina, bold colored and layer pattern still considered alternative rather than classic? If we reframe luxury, especially for Afro-Caribbean design, luxury does not have to mean white, European, minimal, or gilded. It can mean ancestral knowledge, climate-responsible design, color as power, and pattern as storytelling, materials rooted in land and people. Certain symbols became luxury, symbols of luxury because power made them so. The future of design asks a different question. Whose history gets to define beauty, and who gets to redefine it now? Point two is there is no neutral design. Design is never neutral. It reflects values, power, structures, geography, climate, religion, class, and history. What gets labeled neutral is usually white or beige palettes, minimal ornamentation, symmetry, and restraint. European derived proportion of systems of neutral is not the absence of culture. Neutral is simply the culture that has been normalized. When something feels neutral, it's because we've been trained not to question it. Minimalism and traditional luxury are cultural choices. Minimalism is often presented as clean, sophisticated, elevated, and modern, but historically, minimalism emerges from modern European modernism, Bauhaus philosophy, Scandinavian climates and values, post-war austerity and industrial efficiency. These are specific cultural conditions, not universal ideals. Likewise, traditional luxury comes from European aristocracy and colonial wealth, not from a global consensus on beauty. Calling these styles timeless or correct hides their origins and positions them above critique. How do non-European aesthetics get othered? Design rooted in African, Caribbean, Asian, indigenous, or diasporic cultures is often seen as ethnic, busy, too bold, overwhelmed, not refined, statement design. These labels do real damage. They imply that decoration equals excess and color equals lack of discipline. Pattern, chaos, storytelling equals culture. Meanwhile, European ornamentation is called classic, layered, collected, ornate, rich in history. Same complexity, different framing. There is a double standard in design language for non-European aesthetics. European aesthetics are called timeless, trendy, classic, ethnic, blah, 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 blah. This isn't accidental. Language is how power reinforces itself. Now, why does this matter? When neutrality is defined through an Eurocentric lens, clients feel pressured to erase cultural identity. Designers self-edit to be taken seriously. Entire design traditions are sidelined. Homes become disconnected from the people living in them. People aren't asking for neutral spaces. They're asking for spaces that feel safe, validated, and aspirational within accepted norms. Reclaiming culture intentionally in design does not need to be neutral. It needs to be intentional. Intentional design asks, who is this space for? What stories does it tell? What memories, rituals, and values does it hold? Whose aesthetic rules are we following and why? Bold color is not rebellion and pattern is not clutter. Cultural expression is not a trend. It is designed with memory, context, and soul. There is no neutral design, only design that has become normalized by power. The future of luxury is not quieter, it is more honest. So what does it mean to decolonize a room? It's not about rejecting beauty, luxury, or refinement. It is about rejecting the idea that beauty only comes from one lineage. It means designing spaces that do not seek approval from Eurocentric standards before they feel finished, elevated, or correct. Decolonizing design means questioning where styles come from instead of asking, does this look high-end? You ask, who decided this was high-end and why? You interrogate why white walls are considered safe, why minimalism is equated with intelligence, why ornament is treated as excess, and why certain materials are considered primitive while others are considered classic. Every design choice has a history. Decolonization begins by making that history visible. Valuing global craftsmanship equally, hand-carved wood, woven fibers, block printing, beadwork, ceramics, metalwork, these are not accents. They are architectural intelligence passed down through generations. Decolonizing a room means placing indigenous, African, Caribbean, Asian craftsmanship on the same tier as European antiques. Treating artisans as designers, not sources. paying for labor, not just aesthetics, letting imperfection, patina, and handmade variations signal value, not flaw. Luxury is not polish alone. It is time, skill, and lineage. How do we design from identity, not aspiration? Colonized design teaches people to aspire away from themselves. Decolonized design asks, how do you live? What colors feel like home? What textures remind you of family? What rituals happen in this space? Instead of copying hotel lobbies, Pinterest algorithms, magazine spreads, you would design from memory, culture, climate, community, and personal rhythm. The goal is not to look wealthy, the goal is to feel rooted. How do we let culture lead instead of conformity? Conformity asks, will this offend? Will this be too much? Will this judge? Culture asks, is this true? Is this intentional? Is this alive? Decolonized rooms don't flatten themselves to be palatable. They don't dilute stories for resale value. They don't whisper when the owner speaks in color. What this looks like in practice is pattern over plain, not excess, but as language. Toile as that tells diaspora stories, and geometric patterns rooted in ancestry, and layered textures that reflect movement and ritual. Pattern holds memory. Plainness often erases it. So no more mass-produced abstract with no context. Neutral wall art meant to offend no one and move no one. Instead, try portraiture, archival photography, folk art, sculptural pieces, works that speak to lineage, resistance, joy, and everyday life. Art should say something, even quietly. Color as confidence, not rebellion. Color is not loud, it's not immature, it's not a phase. Colored is climate responsive, emotionally intelligent, historically grounded, and psychologically affirming. Decolonized color use doesn't ask permission, it doesn't justify itself. It simply exists with authority. What decolonizing a room is not, it's not chaos, it's not trend setting, chasing, it's not maximalism for shock, it's not rejecting European design wholesale, it's just choice with awareness. Closing truth to decolonize a room is to allow it to reflect who you are, not who design history told you to become. It's the difference between decorating to be accepted and designing to be seen. And once a space is seen, it can never go back to neutral. Redefining timelessness, timeless equals old European. Timeless has long been coded as white walls, marble surfaces, symmetry, antiques, but age alone does not create longevity. And Europe does not own permanence. Calling something timeless simply because it has existed for centuries ignore whose histories were preserved, funded, and protected, and whose were interrupted. Timelessness is not about where something comes from, it's about whether it continues to matter. It equals meaningful. A room that lasts when it means something is when colors are chosen with intention, when objects carry memory, when materials reflect how people actually live, when design responds to ritual, not resale, meaning anchors a space. Without it, even the most classical room feel hollow. And lived in spaces don't age well because they're untouched. They age well because they're used. A truly timeless room holds wear without shame, gains patina instead of anxiety, collects stories instead of dust, and allows life to leave evidence. Perfection dates a space, life sustains it. Timeless equals emotionally resonant trends and speak to the moment. Timeless spaces speak to the person. Emotion outlasts fashion. A room becomes timeless when it makes you exhale and feels like return, not performance. Reflects identity instead of aspiration and feels right when styles change. You don't abandon spaces that feel like home. A room that evolves with you will always outlast trends, and timeless rooms are not frozen. They are flexible. They allow new art, new colors, new rituals, and new chapters. Design that can evolve doesn't fear change, it anticipates it. That adaptability, not adherence to old aesthetic, is what gives a room its staying power. Timelessness is not about copying the past, it's about creating continuity. A space rooted in culture, memory, emotion, and intention will always outlive whatever design magazines declare in or out. So, what is the lesson? Timeless design is not inherited, it's lived into. And the most enduring rooms are not the ones that look like history, they're the ones that hold yours. Your home is one of the few places where you get to define the narrative. So make it count, make it honest, make it yours. I know this was a lot, but share with me what timeless means in your culture, and link me in my DM or email in my bio to book a consult. Have a great day, guys.